Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to be looking at solving a radical equation. In this case I have my square root of 14x plus 9 minus 3 equals x. Well, when I solve any radical equation, my main goal is to isolate my radical on one side. In this case that's the square root of 14x plus 9. So I'm going to move my negative 3 in particular, by adding it to both sides. That's going to leave me with the square root of 14x plus 9 equals x plus 3. Next I want to get rid of my radical. So since I have an index of 2, again because it's a square root, my index is 2, I'm going to raise both sides to the second power. What that's going to do is eliminate my square root. So now I have 14x plus 9. And on the right, the quantity x plus 3 squared means the same thing as x plus 3 times x plus 3. When I FOIL that, it's going to leave me with x squared plus 6x plus 9. Now I want to isolate my x. And since I have a x squared or a quadratic, it's usually more helpful to get all your terms on one side. So I'm going to subtract my 14x from both sides, and I will subtract my 9 from both sides. So on the left hand side I have a 0. On the right I have my x squared minus 8x. Negative 9 plus positive 9 adds to 0. So I'm left with 0 equals x squared minus 8x. I want to solve this equation. With a quadratic, often that means solve by factoring. In this case I can factor by factoring out the greatest common factor, which in this case is x. Using my zero product property, I have x equals 0 and x minus 8 equals 0, and solving, that'll give me x equals a positive 8. So x equals 0 and x equals 8 are the two solutions that I've come across. And with all radical equations, whenever you raise something to a power, or I should say raise both sides of an equation to a power, which is commonly associated with radical equations, we want to check to make sure each of these answers is correct, works for our situation. We don't want to have an extraneous solution. That's what sometimes can happen. So I'm going to put both these back into the original equation. So I've set up my two equations, the original ones, one with 0 in for x and one with 8 in for x. So I'm going to check each of these and make sure that they work. On the left, for my first equation, 14 times 0, that's straightforward. That's going to be 0 plus 9. So the square root of 9 minus 3, which is 3 minus 3. Is that equal to 0? And yes, it is. So my first answer, 0, checks out. Testing my second one. 14 times 8 is 112. I'll add 9, which gives me the square root of 121. Square root of 121 is 11. And does 11 minus 3 equal 8? And indeed it does. So this tells me that both of my answers, x equals 0 and x equals 8, are solutions to my equation. So again, when I have a radical equation, especially when there's a variable outside of the radical, I still want to isolate my radical on one side, and still raise both sides to a power, to the appropriate power. Get all my terms on one side and factor the trinomial. Factor by whatever method works best. Once I get my answers, I still want to check to make sure they're both valid.